Powerful. Michael, what about you?
I mean, for me, I watched the debate the other night and I saw the president, support white supremacy and racism. And I think we all know that he's a guy that will say anything to win. And let's be real, a lot of the people nowadays, they get their information from social media and watching the Proud Boys and their clickbait videos that are intended to intimidate us and scare us from voting. For me, I plan to vote early. But what else can we do to protect our votes? What else can we do to ensure that, the shenanigans, won't arise again like it did back in 2016? What are those things? Because I'm gonna vote early. I'm gonna tell everybody that I know to vote early, but what really can we do besides, just the act of voting, if that makes sense?
No, it does make sense. Let me just jump in and say a couple of things. Number one, people should not listen to folks who are suggesting that somehow if you vote by mail, it's not going to be counted, or that somehow there's going to be a whole bunch of fraud. There's a bunch of efforts to confuse and discourage. But even in 2016, there was some shenanigans going on to the extent that it had an impact. Most of it had to do with people not voting because they got wrong information. If you get the right information, you cast your ballot's counted. There's not a bunch of evidence in 2016, 2012, 2008 that your votes didn't get counted. But a lot of times stories are told, urban legends are told about how nobody's going to count the vote, or the voting's rigged, or this or that. The fact of the matter is that even in states that discourage voting, once you actually vote, the vote gets counted. So that's not something I want people to be fearful about. Now, I do think that there's some things that we could be doing. I spoke yesterday. A few people saw me in the virtual seats at the NBA Finals, in part because the NBA had partnered to ensure that we get more poll watchers at voting in person, polling places. The reason that that's important is poll watchers, a lot of times we take them for granted, but they are the ones who help move things along. If you go stand in line and you vote, or if you vote early, you walk in, there's somebody there who can say, all right, here's what you have to do. Here's how you fill it out. Here's to make sure that it's counted and sealed and put in the machine properly. And a lot of those historically have been seniors who volunteer their own time. And they do a great job. With COVID, obviously, seniors are more at risk for that exposure. So what we had yesterday is a big push to get young people in their respective communities to start volunteering to serve as poll watchers and to serve as poll workers. That can be extremely helpful, mainly just to make sure that you don't start getting big crowds and longer waits because there aren't enough people there just to help facilitate the mechanics of voting in person. And people are getting trained quickly and able to do it. And I'm hopeful that we start seeing more volunteers for that. That will be important. And the last point I just want to make is everybody who's on the line, not only should you be encouraging people to vote, but what you also need to do is encourage people to have a plan to vote. So when you say you're going to vote early, that means you've already been thinking, all right, here's how I'm going to go about it. The best thing for you to do, if you are in a state where there's early vote, use that. Don't wait on election day. Now you're going to have a long line. And who knows, if you got to get to your job, suddenly you're late, the line's not moving as quick as you want. You don't want to be in that position. So think ahead. It's just like everything in COVID right now. You got to think ahead, right? If you want to do things because you want to stay safe, it means that you've got certain restrictions. We got Michelle's mother-in-law coming to visit. Love my mother-in-law. We've made a plan to make sure that everybody in our household, even though we have no symptoms, we're going to get tested again, because my mother-in-law, I'm not going to say how old she is, but she's within that band that she looks good, but she's within the band that, there's an additional threat there. So voting's the same thing. All of you who are on the line, when you talk to your friends, neighbors, parents, cousins, etc., ask them, when are you going to vote? Not just if you're going to vote. And that can make a huge difference. Long term, we're going to have to do all kinds of structural things to protect do a better job protecting the vote. But we're only going to be able to do that, by the way, if enough people vote this time, so that we have a Democratic Senate, a Democratic House, and a Democratic president. Then we can get voting reform in to start making voting easier for people rather than harder, which is what, as I said, most advanced democracies around the world do. They don't purposely try to put barriers in for voting. They try to encourage people to vote. Kamala, I'm sorry.
Okay. Michael, also, there's a website, iwillvote.com, and just encourage people to go there to make sure that they're registered. And if they're not registered, they can register there. So it's iwillvote.com, in addition to everything that the president talked about.